All right, Dan, what's up? Crazy episode. We're talking about season 5, episode 7, entitled Linda. You know any Lindas in your life?
My aunt's name was Linda.
Was.
That's right. Yeah, she has passed away. This is a dark way to start the episode.
Rest in peace, Linda. Can I say that?
Yes.
I'll just recap the episode real fast so we're on the same page, and then we can kind of just jump into where we think it's going, what we thought of the episode overall, and all that jazz. The most of the episode follows Dot, and as she goes on this journey of I want to say self-discovery or rediscovering her trauma. And it's done in a very beautiful, poetic puppet way. And I think more shows should have these puppet shows. And this one was really incredible. All the puppets looked so cool. And an aspect of that I liked a lot about it, because at the end of the day, this whole sequence is a dream. And this episode really just serves to if we weren't on Dot's side already, we are fully on Dot's side now, and kind of her journey of true abuse and grooming, and there's a lot there that we will unpack in this. And basically, yeah, the puppet show kind of shows all that, and then I really liked how there was no voice acting by John Hamm or Joe Keery, or even the actress who plays Linda Tillman. It's only Juno Temple doing all the voices, which I really like that touch. And the episode ends with Dot waking up, her car getting completely destroyed, and then her getting hit and knocked out by a different car, which was an awesome sequence. And then in the most obvious twist ever, the nurse says, "Your husband's here," and we all know Roy was going to come out, not Wayne. I love this episode a lot. It felt fresh. It feels like an episode like this hasn't really happened in Fargo. It still had an awesome, cliffhanger in it. And I don't know, it just really shows what this season is about. And it's about abuse, and it's about a horrible man. And I don't think it's saying anything about obviously you can tie it to the wider world and all that, but I think specifically it's talking about this and this type of man with this type of woman. And I think it's really great so far, and I love Juno Temple, and Noah Hawley's been killing it this season, and it's very different. It feels like a different series almost.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode as well. I have a few nits to pick with it, but none of them sway me from my enjoyment of the episode overall. I think let's start with the dream, it all being a dream thing, because that is one of the most tired tropes, and I never enjoy it. I never when somebody is but it was a dream. With that being said, though, it still was a great opportunity for a character who would not otherwise vocalize these things to have these things expressed. So there is not another world where Juno Temple will sit down, or Dot will sit down with somebody within the universe and explain what happened to her, especially because it's so traumatic. So this does offer a narrative function, which I appreciate. And again, that's a reason why I can forgive it. But it is a very tired trope, and so when it happens it was revealed at the end of the episode that it was all a dream, I was simultaneously well, that's kind of annoying, but also I was happy because this entire episode's structure was very odd, and the things that were happening were very odd in terms of I think after the puppet show, which we'll come back to a little bit later, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but after the puppet show, when everything is revealed, I was looking around at all of the other women in the commune, and I was how could you ever trust like OG Linda ever again after what she did to Dot, but everyone's just smiling and happy, and Linda's just like, we can go defeat the bad guy. And so in that way I was happy that like it ended up being a dream, because it was getting like, it was this like larger than life sort of silly thing. My first question for you though is, because I mean we watch movies and TV religiously all the time. Like we hope to write for film and television. Like we think of ourselves as like clever, I would think sometimes. And yet I'm never able to detect when something is going on like this, when they're going to subvert me. When in the episode did you realize that it was a dream, or did it take until the reveal? Because in retrospect, there are clues obviously that I want to talk about.
Yeah, but I think the biggest clue is that was like the postcard, like how she got that and like what was going on there. Like I thought that was like really weird. And then like the whole camp being called like Camp Utopia was like really weird. But like I think what really tipped me off was like, and again, I was like fully ready to be wrong, because as soon as they got in the car, I was like, okay, maybe I am wrong. But when Linda at the end, when we're saying Linda, it's going to be like Linda Tillman. And she was like, we're going to defeat him together. I was like, this is like it seems like this is almost too much, in the sense that it's like, this is really like the climax we're like building to, is like we meet this character Linda who, you know, has been mentioned maybe offhandedly, like how Roy has had 3 wives or whatever, but like we're not introduced to her until like right now. And like all of a sudden she's going to be like the person that saves the day, even though like in this like puppet show, she's clearly the one who like has trapped, you know, she's like probably the second at fault here after obviously Roy, but it's like she basically trapped Dot in this situation, or, you know, back then Nadine. But I'm not going to like toot my own horn and said I knew it immediately, but like, it was like a thing where I was like, it was going down a way where I'm like, this seems almost like too perfect. And I'm hoping something is like changed. But again, like halfway through the episode, I'm like, I mean, this is too long to be a dream sequence, right? But I was very happy at the end when like that kind of pin dropped. And I think what switches it up from like something that I don't like about, like this was all a dream, was like, this isn't the end of the episode, or this isn't the end of the series. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's done. It's like there's still 3 episodes left, and I think in those 3 episodes, a more satisfying conclusion will be gained through it being a dream than if it was actually reality, in my eyes.
Yeah, and I think if this were reality, we would both be like, what? This is silly. Because as the episode was going along, in retrospect now, it's like, you know, within economical storytelling, like there's an early scene where Dot's just driving on the road and she gets sleepy and almost like veers off. And I remember watching that and just being, why did they show that? Like, other than to say that like she's really tired and this has been really draining. And then she goes to the diner and there's a little thing that says chicken piccata on the poster board, or on the post board. And then later when they're having dinner in the commune, someone's like, chicken piccata, it's my special recipe. And I'm like, that's a weird callback. Like, is it her recipe? I wasn't even registering that like all of these things are connected for a reason. But they do lay those little seeds early, which again makes it, in retrospect, a much more, it's a clever conceit for the episode. But in the experience of watching the episode, I was just like, why'd they show that? Like, why is there a shot of this chicken piccata? Like, why does she have to make a doll? Like, I'm already so tired of this. Like, I don't want to have to, I know how the episode's going to end. She's going to make the doll. She's going to explain her trauma. And then like Linda's going to come with her. And like, that is exactly what happens. And it's because it's a dream. And so in retrospect, I love the episode more than in the actual moment of watching the episode. Which is an interesting thing, because I think this whole season has been like very rewarding moment to moment. And so for me, this episode wasn't necessarily rewarding moment to moment, but after the fact. And I do love, like you were saying, the puppet show. Like, that is the big highlight. And I think, again, a reason that you're able to do that is because it's within a dream. Like, if it was within the real world, then you might be thinking, I don't know, you might bump on that. But that was the highlight of the episode, and probably one of the like 3 best things that I saw on television this year. It's such an interesting idea, not only like the visual aspect of it and just how cool it looks and how fresh it feels, but also like narratively to use that as a way to explain this traumatic backstory through this like sort of childish, playful demonstration is I don't know what the right word to describe it is, but it was certainly a new way of doing that, because I think within like the larger culture, I think there have been a lot of pieces written about like trauma narratives over the last 5 years, and like how much of our popular culture revolves around trauma narratives, like within storytelling. And I do think that there is like a level to which we're all collectively sort of getting bored with that. And because I think, a lot of the issues that we might have with like the Marvel Cinematic Universe or like these larger, like big blockbuster projects, a lot of that comes down to like this sort of trauma narrative or like Christ narrative, or, just like some of these like very basic narratives that we've been following as structures for a long time. And so to depict this, what is a trauma narrative, but in such a fresh and fun and creative way, that makes it, and this sounds wrong, but like it's a fun scene to watch, even though it's about such a dark subject matter. And it does, it does everything that it would have done if it was depicted in like a pure flashback. You're disgusted at the end of it. You feel terrible for Dot, but it still is done in this way that it doesn't make you cover your eyes and peek through the cracks of your fingers. It's enjoyable and it's fun and more palatable, certainly.
Yeah, there's like, I feel like juxtaposition is an overused word. As someone with an English degree. But I definitely think there's like a nice juxtaposition going with how cute and like fun the puppetry is, and then how dark the material is. And dark in like such a way where it's like, yeah, like we thought like Dot was just like, just fell in love and married. Like there was never any like love in this like relationship, which is like you fall in love, get married, and then he's like an abusive asshole or whatever. It's like, oh no, like Roy has always been like an abusive asshole, and now it's like he added like pedophilia to his like laundry list of like horrible things. Like, like Dot was like 15 when she like met, like, so it's like what's weirder now is like Dot and Gator don't have so much like of a mother-son relationship. They more have like a sibling relationship, because she was like brought in as like a young teenager and he was like a kid back then. And I think what's interesting about like the whole puppet thing is like obviously like it shows Dot's story, but it also shows the abuse that Gator has gone through. And like again, now his like stuff is kind of making more sense because like he has had like a traumatic upbringing as well. And yeah, overall, I think the scene just speaks to what Fargo can do as like a show. And it's like, 10 years ago, crazy, when the first season came out, I was thinking like, oh, like there's only so much you can do in Fargo. But, over the past 10 years, it's been really cool to see like what kind of stories like Noah Hawley can tell, because like in many ways it's like limitless in the fact that like last season, I think series works better for like, that's like what the British use and like other, but anyways, I digress. But like last season, like we got this beautiful East-West episode 9 of season 4, like where it's basically just like an old Hollywood movie. And like I was rewatching some scenes from that, and like in the next season, it's like we get like a puppet show, and then in season 3, we get like the bowling alley. There's like so many like things in every season where like it's so different and fresh. And, unlike anything else I'm seeing on television, it's like, how many times can you show me Rick Grimes walking on a dirt road for like 7 seasons? And it's like, it's so, we're on season 5 of Fargo now. And it's like, maybe this is the last season. I haven't heard much about season 6, but it's like, if this is the last season, like it is really cool how much stuff they've dealt with not only with like, you know, abuse this season, but like, again, like season 3 is about truth. There's like a lot of race in season 4. Like season 2 has some racial things as well, and like a lot of like 1970s politics. Like each season brings something so fresh and new, and I think this episode like really like encapsulates that.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think it early on, I think the decision was made by Holly and the rest of the team that like they weren't just adapting Fargo, they were adapting the Coen brothers, because like you said, the bowling alley in season 3 is, you know, Big Lebowski callback, and like a lot of the some of these like more fun elements, even the puppet show to some degree reminds me of some of the silliness of like a Buster Scruggs, you know, like it's not the exact same thing, but like there are elements of other Coen brothers movies that find their ways into these seasons of Fargo. Season 4 especially is like Miller's Crossing. So like I think that was really where that was like the pivotal decision, I think, that was necessary to allow this show to go 5 seasons, because just adapting Fargo, which is funny but kind of bleak and pretty simple, like I don't think that just adapting that could have gone this far. I think adapting Coen brothers but doing it through the banner of Fargo is like the great genius of the show, and it does allow for them to talk about more subjects, and especially this season with like the abuse, and going back to the puppet show again, like talking about economical storytelling. It was there initially I was thinking, well, why, like it's an amazing scene, but like what is ultimately learned, or you know, what is necessary about digging deeper into this backstory? Because like you said, we already, coming into this episode, we're on Dot's side. We understand that she had this like deep level of abuse because we saw the photographs, and like we believe her, and we've seen Roy be a murderer and like in just an absolute insane person. So as I'm watching him, like what can be revealed through this, and like what is the greater point other than just making Roy like an even worse monster? And to your point, it is really the Gator stuff that comes out of it, and it sets up Gator, you know, simultaneously. In this episode, Gator's also like still like doing some really stupid stuff, but it does set us up for the final few episodes for some sort of emotional catharsis with Gator, whether he learns anything or not, whether he gets to the place that Dot envisions for him or not. And she alludes to that in this episode as well, that she sees that there is a good in him, but he's also trying to be like Roy. Whether or not he gets to where he needs to go is an open question, but it does sort of set up a more emotionally satisfying conclusion, regardless of which way it goes. And then obviously, of course, you know, the bringing in the grooming aspect of it, and it does really just make Roy an even more terrible person. And it does, like you said, illuminate the fact that there was never love in that relationship. It was always from the beginning an abusive relationship that was purely predatory, and like he is just a monster. Like there is no love in his heart. You know, it wasn't that he felt love and was abusive and then she ran away and now he feels scorned. It's that from beginning he was always this predatory monster.
Yeah. And you know, I think maybe some might argue that like that makes this story less interesting, but I think it makes it more interesting in the sense that like they keep building it up, where it's like you think you know everything about Roy, you don't. And in many ways, like he is becoming like a very like scary figure that you don't even like need to see in an episode. Like I think if you know like how they do that in Marvel movies where they're like, this is how many minutes Captain America was in Infinity War, and you're like, oh, he was only in Infinity War for like 7 minutes, like what the hell? But like in this season, I genuinely think like John Hamm's probably only been on screen for like 15 minutes, but like how everyone talks about him and like what he like represents in the overall season is like a lot bigger than his actual character. I mean, that's why he gets the and credit. You know what I mean? It's not like he's second bill.
Yeah,
he
exactly.
gets the and credit. At the end, it says and John Hamm. But you touched on something a bit, and this might bring us off the rails for a bit, but I'm curious when you say, and I agree with this, but I'm just curious, like, what separates Fargo from being like a great thing that goes like further than, like, I'm not saying like it's better, but it's just like it stands on its own merits without like the Coen brothers, while simultaneously sort of being derivative of like the Coen brothers filmography. Because, like, again, like when you said the bowling alley, it's like, oh yeah, that's just like a reference to like the Big Lebowski. But it's like, what like separates Noah Hawley's vision from just being a derivative part of like being derivative of the Coen brothers?
Well, I think it comes down to like, yeah, I think it, because I mean, he's using a lot of the like iconography of the films and character archetypes and style and all of that stuff to like, you know, bring you into a world that you're sort of familiar with. But I think that what Noah Hawley is saying about the world and about America is different than what the Coen brothers are saying about the world in America. I honestly couldn't say if I could, like, I don't know if I could define what the Coen brothers' perspective on the world is, because their filmography is quite varied. Like, they are pretty bleak at times. No Country for Old Men and Fargo are both like quite bleak, but even Fargo ends quite, you know, warmly. So I think that they have a lot of different things that they're trying to say about the world, and they use each movie as an opportunity to like dig into a different set of questions. And they're never attempting to answer anything. And I don't think Noah Hawley is necessarily trying to answer anything, but I do think he's pointing towards solutions in a more clear way, or at least pointing towards problems in a more clear way. And I think his interests are more narrow, I guess, if that makes sense. I think that he has a particular, because I mean, all of these seasons really revolve around truth. Obviously, the Fargo movie, like that, it was more of a joke, really, you know, and a sales tactic, and and like you know, so that was more of like what that this is a true story thing was doing for the Fargo movie. This is a true story for Noah Hawley and for the series is really an opportunity to explore like this main central question of like, what is truth in these warring Americas that we live in and have possibly always lived in. And so I think that what separates the Coen brothers Fargo from Noah Hawley's Fargo is really just like what each of them are trying to say about the world. I think that there is a deeper interest in people in the show than there is in the movie. And I think that there like, are
inherently, because like a TV show, you have more time than like in a movie, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that sort of gets to the heart of it. And, you know, even in this episode, like we'll talk about Munch and Gator and their stuff in a moment, but like when Munch comes out with the axe, it's exactly like the movie, you know, it's like almost a shot for shot recreation of the axing. And,
right.
And while I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, you know, that's, you know, cool. But but it means something completely different, you know? And I think that's what's fun about it. And because there's a lot of remakes and adaptations in Hollywood on television and in film that steal the iconography and that's it. They don't play off of it at all, but consistently the show has always borrowed and then used it in service of what Noah Hawley is most interested in. Right.
I think you said that very, very well. And I agree. I mean, because the reason I asked that question was like, because I've never thought for a moment that it's derivative of other Coen Brothers stuff. But like you said, like every episode we're like, oh, this is a callback to this Coen Brothers moment. But again, it's similar to like how we've been talking about like Trump and all that this season. It's like, it doesn't like whack you over the head with it. It's just like, it like might acknowledge it, but it's not like, there's so many shows that just keep beating you over the head with stuff. And like, I feel like in other hands, like Roy Tillman is like so unlikable and kind of frankly like an annoying character to watch. But I think like what we're talking about with all of this, like it just works because it's not beating you over the head with it, but it is acknowledging it.
Right. And I think I think the point's already sort of been made. We both agree, but I think one example just to sort of light you up of where of the opposite of sort of what we're talking about is Joker. That's a movie that, deliberately rips off Taxi Driver and King of Comedy, and does it with the skin of the Batman Joker like universe. Yeah. But it's ultimately not saying anything new. And that is like the biggest difference. Like, even though like sometimes the skin is reused, or like, character archetypes or whatever, it's always something more fresh and more fun than that. And that's really where we both get hung up on the movie Joker, is where like it just doesn't feel like it's doing anything for anyone. It's not contributing in a meaningful way to any sort of serious conversation. It's really just capitalizing off of the success of other films.
You're laughing. 3 men are dead and you're laughing.
I don't like that movie.
Yeah, no, I don't either. And if you do, more power to you. But you should also check out Connor O'Malley's video that makes fun of Joker. It's really good. And he kills Greg Kinnear in the movie, in the little short film he made. I think you should leave last week and then Connor O'Malley this week.
We're doing good work.
I wouldn't even call it alt comedy anymore. It is just like what most people find funny. But let's move right along. I could talk about Joker and Connor O'Malley forever, but that is for another time. Let's talk about like just like where Munch and Gator are. These two lovebirds, so to speak. But a lot happened this episode. Is particularly in this house that Munch has been in since episode 3. I live here now. I live here now. And he says the line again. He says it again. And this old woman who he's been living with, she has a son who I don't think is mentioned before. Maybe she's been on the phone with him or something. I haven't been paying attention, I guess. And he's just like, you gotta make me a sandwich, bitch, mom. Like, he's like really mean. And you're like, okay, I guess this is an opportunity for Munch to be a good guy. And then he's like, I live here now. And the guy's like, oh yeah, you live here now? Okay, where's your rent? And then like he steals money from him, right? I'm like, and again, like I was thinking this, I'm like, bro, you don't want to steal from this 500-year-old sin eater, bro. And then the guy's like walking out of the house, and then Munch comes out with the axe, and it's the axe sequence. He kills him, and then later on, Munch uses his body. And I'm curious how Munch knew this. If he like had like some, like if he knew the tracker was on him. But like the weird part is like he had spent a night. The assumption is he spent a night in that house before Gator came. So was he doing this the night before? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. But anyways, he sets up a dummy. Gator kills the dummy. Gator gets super excited, steals his money back because it's still in the car, which at that point I'd be like, okay, something's up. Like, this guy's not this stupid. And then the old woman's like, thief. And then Gator pushes her down and murders her by accident. And then like leaves her body there. And again, a very Fargo death. Also a very sad death. That woman seemed like she was in debt, and this old 500-year-old guy murdered her son, who was abusive also, and then she dies on the cement in the ice. Rip that woman. Maybe her name's Linda also. So rip Linda. I'm sure she has a name. I should just look this up, but I don't want to because I think it's funny. In many ways, she was the who is this guy of this season. So rest in peace to her. And then Gator leaves, and then Munch howls, right? Like to the moon kind of, and then that's the last we see of them. I'm interested to see where this goes. Seems like Gator's fucked, absolutely. Like Munch is gonna do some shit to him, guaranteed, in the next couple episodes. But yeah, what do you think of this subplot of this episode?
I have like two main thoughts. One is sort of like a little bit of nitpicking, and then one is sort of like looking forward. So the nitpicking aspect of it is what you were saying of like, like how long was he sitting there pulling this rocking chair, and like I know that that's a silly thing for us to complain about, but like it's the greater question of it is like in the structure of the storytelling, I think, because like the way that it was structured left us asking those questions. It was in service of like this big reveal that Gator like shot not Munch, but I didn't for a second believe that he shot Munch. So I thought that it would be a better way to service the story to do the Anton Chigurh thing of where you're watching the mechanisms of how he's setting up like a trap, rather than like this sort of, you know, faux reveal that like, oh, he didn't actually get Munch, because obviously he didn't shoot Munch in the head, like obviously. So I think that the reveal aspect of it was a little bit wanting, and these nitpicks could have been avoided had they structured it differently. But again, it's always easier to say like do this after you watch something, because like we're basing it off of that. So I mean, it's not really a criticism as much as just like, I don't know, just a thought. But with that being said, it's still a fun, clever idea, a really good way to get out of a situation. Again, I do not know how much Munch knows, if it's like because he's 500 years old and supernatural, like if he knew the tracker was under there. But whatever, that's okay. Gator, of course, is an idiot, always is, and it is really sad when the woman dies like that. It's just a bummer, and like I'm curious about like his bloodlust compared to Roy's, because like Roy will kill somebody, you know, without much hesitation. I'm interested to see going forward if like Gator's reaction to this is like the thing that sort of pushes him to like the emotional state where he, you know, maybe makes a turn, or like Kylo Ren just digs in deeper. So that's one element of the going forward. But then also I think sometimes you're watching a subplot in a show and like every moment is rewarding. There are other times where you're sort of like, okay, where is this going? And then they land the ship and it's like everything in retrospect is worth it. Kind of the way that we were talking about the Linda subplot stuff in this episode. I've enjoyed the Gator and Munch stuff, but it's almost amazing to look up at the episode number at this point and be like, they're still doing this at episode 7, and like they will still be doing it in episode 8. And it seems obvious now that like, oh yeah, that makes sense, that Munch and Gator, that's a subplot and they were going to be tied together from the beginning always. But like week to week, I kind of just like I don't know why I didn't expect that it was going to go this long, but it will go this long. And so those two are just directly tied together. And like that is, when we look back on the show this season, that'll be an element of which that we talk about and think about. And so how they land that ship is going to be pretty big for me.
Yeah, and maybe they'll land it with like Gator having some sort of redemption and like letting it go, but also at the same time I'm like, I feel like Gator has just picked this fight like the entire time. Like Munch just wanted money, and then he was like, all right, we're gonna kill you now, and then he got his ass handed to him, and then now he stole his money again, and it's like, what, like like what are we doing here? Like, but again, if they land the ship right, it'll be fine. But it does seem kind of like it just goes back and forth. And it's upsetting because both performances are out of this world. But maybe like the writing just like isn't 100% there. Also, her name's Irma.
Irma. Rest in peace, Irma. Rest
in power, Irma. But yeah, and then the only last thing I guess we can talk about is the big reveal at the end. I guess like Wayne and Scotty had like some cute scenes. Wayne's performance is really awesome. David Rysdale has done a great job. We learned this off mic, but he's married to Zazie Beetz of Atlanta, Deadpool 2, and Joker fame.
That's 2 shout-outs to Joker in this episode.
Shout-outs to Joker in this episode. She's great in it. She's not real in the movie.
She's a Linda.
Is she going to be in the second one? I don't care. I'm going to see it, though. But yeah, overall, again, I think it's just checking back in, and like this whole episode and season, I think is just servicing Dot. So I think, you know, they were still trying to get you with the twist because they showed way more of Wayne than Roy this episode, obviously. But it's like I was saying earlier, Roy has such like a force, a dark force over like the entire season that it's like, I'm still thinking of Roy more than I ever think about Wayne. But there was this fun car dealership scene where he's, you know, because he works in selling cars. And the guy's just like, we can't, like, give him this, like, because it's a shittier car, so, like, we still have to charge him a bunch of money for the car. And then Wayne is still not well, and he's just like, car for a car. Yeah, car for a car is great. And, like, his performance is, like, really fun this season. And again, like, I think it's going to be fun, like, if they land his ship and, like, he's not, like, he's just impaired the rest of his life. Like, that's probably, like, he got electrocuted. Like, this might just be electrocuted,
and he turned into a little socialist, just giving away cars. I love it.
Yeah, and it's just fun to see these two characters, like, just have, like, a chill time.
Yeah, and again, it's you know, on one end, it's sad that, like, the life that Dot had before meeting Wayne and before having Scotty, it's sad that, like, that is not only, like, gonna always affect her, but now it's also affecting the ones that she loves in like very real ways, where Wayne is like electroshock therapied into socialism, which we love.
Yeah, because we're leftists.
It's also, I don't know, it's also like because I don't think that he is like that different than he was before. He's just kind of slower. Like, he's very kind and just very nice and a great father and like just a good guy. So knowing that, like, if Dot succeeds, that this is the life that she gets to have, this is the reward for all of the pain and suffering, then like it does help us root for that in like a special way, different than other Fargo seasons where usually like the family is, and this is just a case in like a lot of things, there's always like the quote unquote like nagging wife that's like preventing the man from like, you know, accomplishing great things or whatever. That's always like the trope, but like in this, it's like such a loving family, and so you're really rooting for this family to get out of this okay, not just Dot.
Like the nagging wife who's always like, what, you're gonna hit me with that hammer, Lester?
Exactly.
Yeah, great scene. But yeah, no, it's like, and it's kind of refreshing that like they're not really involved at all, like in this situation. Like, it's not like again, maybe in episode 10 I'm gonna eat my words and Roy's gonna be like, I kidnapped your family and now I'm gonna beat them with this baseball bat. But hopefully it's just like he doesn't care, like Roy doesn't care about anything else besides getting Dot. And again, I think what we'll learn is like he wants her because he can't have her, and like that's kind of like his goal. I think I cut out, but I was just saying like his goal is like he wants Dot because he can't have her, and like that is what is driving him more so than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the season has been building up to these two reuniting, if you want to call it that. But it's now it's like, okay, so what happens? You know, it sometimes this is the case in like a lot of like, you know, romance films where it's like the yearning and the lust and like all the buildup is the best part, and then like getting together is like the weakest element of the movie. This is like a pretty like critical upcoming episode. Is like what now? Like, you've been building this all season, like what's gonna happen? Like, is Roy gonna put her in a cage and like she has to find her way out of the cage? Like, does everyone converge back at the Tillman complex because Munch is after Gator and the feds come in, or you know, we have a lot of time left. We have episodes 8, 9, and 10, so we have 3 hours, and the finales are often pretty long. So like, got a lot of story left to go. How are they going to land this?
And what about
plane
Whit?
Ship?
And what about Whit?
Yeah, what about Whit?
He's in the next episode, so
is he?
There's that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Lamorne Morris is back. That's awesome. Again, this is like a nice ending to the 7th episode. It's like, I got you. Like, there's nothing she can really do at this point. Like, before it was like a bunch of other people going after her, and it seems like he's got her, and you know, maybe she'll wake up and have like more pancakes, but I'm interested to see where it goes. And like, in some ways I don't know where it's gonna go, because it's like, yeah, it's like, and at the end of the day, it's like, if he has her, is he bored again? You know what I mean? It's like, I'm very curious. And yeah, this scene's gonna be awesome, and he'll call her Nadine, and then she'll be, and that's the thing. I think, you know, I was thinking of calling her Nadine, but I realized that would do a disservice to the woman she is now. And, you know, usually you get like a name change because you're running away from the feds or something, but she changed her name, and at the end of the puppet show or whatever, she's like, my name is Dorothy Lyon. Like, this is who I am. You know, she's not Nadine Bump anymore. Like, she was really never that like person. Like, that person is someone who's dealt with a lot and gone through a lot, and her name symbolically being Dorothy or Dot is like more important to her than anything else, I think. And that's why I'm going to call her Dot. I know you want to call her Nadine, Dan, but
no, but piggybacking off of that, you know, that is another like thing that is illuminated by that puppet show, is like, she never got to be a person. Like, she was 15 and she was taken in off the street. So like, she had no identity. Like, we don't know what her home life was before that, but like, that's young, you know, to get groomed in that way and assaulted in that way. Like,
to bring it to like May, December, it's like that's a whole movie can be done about like where Dot could have been if she was still like married to Roy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's a great point that you bring up about like the naming element of it. 'Cause yeah, she never had an identity of her own. She never had. And so like the fact that she has become like this incredibly capable, protagonist of the show is a testament to just like her, I don't know, her determination, her grit, and like and also just like how awful Roy is. Like, you know, it's pretty illuminating. So like you said, I don't know where they're going to go, and I think that's a great place to be. I think that's really where shows separate themselves. And we both have talked about this before as well. Like, because always the goal is to write yourself into a corner and then write yourself out. A lot of shows that we love are good at writing themselves into corners, not good at writing themselves out of corners. You know, you mentioned Walking Dead earlier. They write characters into corners and then they just get out, and then they do circles with their character arcs for 8 more seasons. 8 more seasons.
Carol and Morgan in particular.
Right. And I think that is where season 4 was a little bit diminished. The build-up was great, and I thought that they wrote themselves into some interesting corners, but then the way that they get out of those corners wasn't as interesting to me. So this season, you know, whether it's good or great is sort of dependent on how they move forward with these last 3 episodes, how they write themselves out of this corner, because as of right now, neither of us know what's going to happen, and that's a great place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't see anywhere else we can leave that than this. Excited to see the next episode, and we'll see you in the new year.